Hi, I'm Raymond. You're watching RPadTV on this beautiful Thursday. Joining me today is the fantastic Paul Semel, longtime video game journalist, fantastic writer, and friend to many celebrities,
Yeah.
including Gene Simmons. Paul, what's going on today, man?
Not much. Chilling, kind of like Bob Dylan.
Yes. And as always, I want to get an update on what's going on the excellent paulsemel.com. Hope you brought props.
I did bring props. So first up, just ran reviews of all of the 4 recent Disney Plus shows that got released on Blu-ray and 4K.
That's
including Andor, Obi-Wan, which annoyingly is called the complete series. That's depressing. Moon Knight, which for some reason is called the complete first season, even though they haven't said anything, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is also the first complete season. I don't know what that says, but all 4 of them are really, really good, especially if you, like me, prefer watching things on physical media because you know they can't really go away too easily. I also have the usual gaggle of book stories, including City of the Undead by Steve Turner, which is, first of all, it's a spin-off. It's based on the board game Zombicide.
Okay.
But you don't really even have to know that because I've never played the game before, and I love these books. It's basically a zombie apocalypse novel set in a fantasy realm.
Huh.
Not to be confused with a fantasy novel that has zombies in it. This is literally like The Walking Dead if The Walking Dead happened at
with
the time
swords and sorcery and
like in like Game of Thrones world.
Oh, they did have the White Walkers. Those guys were
right. But Game of Thrones was not. Game of Thrones was a fantasy story that had zombies.
Right.
This is like 28 days later if it took place at the time of King Arthur.
Gotcha. So I wanted to ask you a question about those Marvel Blu-rays. How are the special features on them?
They are mostly good. They all have, the Marvel ones all have the Marvel assembled things that you get on Disney Plus, but they also have a couple extra features as well. They have deleted scenes, they have gag reels. They don't have a lot in the way of commentaries. They like, some of them have like commentary on like one episode, but it's always the director. It's not like the stars,
right?
Which to me, like, I'm not interested in that. Like, you know, especially when you have interesting people. Like, I would have loved to, like, the Obi-Wan, for example, has that where like the last episode has the director, you know, but not Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, or the little kid that played Leia. Like, that to me would have been really fun to listen to those guys talk about.
Right, but almost in that one, I almost want the director because there's so much going on visually, and I'd love to hear the thought process.
Right. But what I'm saying is it would be great to have them either 2 different
multi-tracks. Yeah.
You know, or one where it's the director and the star. Because I find that when it's just a director commentary, more so on movies than on TV shows, it tends to slip into like very technical film school stuff. And it's like, as somebody who's not interested in that aspect of it, I find that stuff kind of less interesting than when it's like the people in the cast. The problem is when you get the cast, and sometimes they go off topic and they start joking around and blah blah blah, and it's,
or they're like Sean Astin and they just leave.
Right. Although I did like the one, I don't know if you ever heard the one that's on the Spinal Tap Blu-ray.
No, are they?
They do it in character, and they hate the movie.
That sounds amazing.
So it's hilarious. It's just them making fun of it. And apparently there's a Muppet movie one with the Muppets and them talking about the movie too, which I've never heard, but I've heard it's very funny.
For me, the gold standard for commentary tracks are Kevin Smith movies, because
those are always good.
He has so much fun. In probably half of them, maybe more, Jason Mewes is just wasted.
Yeah.
Affleck might be wasted too. I don't know. But
yeah,
you had those Blu-rays, you had some books. Did you have any other props? You were thought you were going
I
to.
was gonna reach this other one. It's a new spy novel called Phantom Orbit, which is by a guy named David Ignatius, who you probably know if you watch like MSNBC or CNN. He's a political commentator, writes a column for the Washington Post, turns up on shows. Very smart guy, and he writes these very, very smart but very grounded spy thrillers. In fact, in the interview we did, he said that when Russia invaded Ukraine, he was the first name that went up on their like no admittance list.
Oh,
like,
wow!
It was like, no, not you. Like he was like the first journalist they put on that list, which is pretty funny.
Well, that sounds interesting. And I was totally ignorant of this man because I do not watch news. I prefer to read news because televised news often pisses me off. Doesn't matter which side is favored. Televised news in America is just mostly garbage. I gave up like 6 or 7 years ago.
So you don't know that Joe Biden is president then?
Really?
Yeah.
It's not Bill Clinton?
No. Sorry. Have you heard about this thing called COVID?
You can read all about these books and Blu-rays on paulsemel.com. The link is right below there, but it's also for your convenience in the description on Facebook and YouTube. So please visit Paul's site. It is most excellent. Now, getting back to the topic at hand, today Paul and I are going to talk about Tales of the Empire on Disney Plus. This is a follow-up to Tales of the Jedi, which was a series of very short animated features. They're like 12 to 16 minutes each, including the credits. So these are nice, quick bite things. My friend Matthew described it as Star Wars tapas. And that totally makes sense. But I really liked the concept of Tales of the Jedi, and I liked half of the episodes of the original. How did you feel about Tales of the Jedi?
I think I like Tales of the Jedi a little bit more, and for a reason than Tales of the Empire. But the problem I had with both of them, and we'll get into this more, is they felt very out of context. And in fact, if you said to me that Tales of the Jedi or Tales of the Empire were episodes 1, 5, 7, 13, and 22 out of 40, I would go, okay, now that makes more sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you had missed some, because there's things where like there's just make these leaps and you're like, wait, what? Like, and I kind of know in a lot of cases, I know what has happened because it references other things, but I'm like, it still doesn't always make a lot of sense. So
yeah, I think that's intentional. I don't know that these work if someone is new or brand new or fairly limited.
Not.
Yeah, because this hops around, as you said, in terms of time, but also in terms of perspective. So this is definitely supplemental content.
Yeah.
So you need to have a pretty high knowledge of everything Star Wars to enjoy it even.
Yeah.
So
which makes it very different than a lot of the other stuff they've done. Like any other animated show they've done, whether it's Rebels or Clone Wars or even this terrible pilot one that I can't even remember the name of because it wasn't that interesting. Like none of those, all of them could stand on their own. In fact, there are people who their entry point into Star Wars was Rebels or the Clone Wars,
Right.
Whereas if you tried to watch this, having never seen anything, you would be like,
you'd be confused as hell. But
yeah,
but this is for people.
Even Rogue One, I feel like you could start with Rogue One in a weird way. Like it certainly works better if you know what happened in A New Hope, but Rogue One even works on its own in a weird way. So
no, I agree with that. But yeah, these are definitely not standalone products. They're for Star Wars fans like you and me, and probably the people that are watching this. One thing I liked about Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire is that it borrows from both the animated series and the live action
Right.
properties, and it blends them together fairly well. Um, the first Tales of the Jedi was, I think, half was about Ahsoka,
Right.
and then half was about a lesser character because Ahsoka's awesome. So,
Right.
Tales of the Empire is 3 episodes about Morgan Elsbeth, who we met in The Mandalorian and met a lot more of in the Ahsoka series. And 3 episodes on Barriss Offee, which was an interesting pick and one that I was excited about. She played a big part towards the end of the Clone Wars in Ahsoka's story. So it was cool to get more info about her. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is the animation style. It just seemed I was more impressed with Tales of the Empire visually than Tales of the Jedi. Was there anything you noticed at all?
No, I thought they fit well together and well within the previous animated stuff. You know, it's that same kind of style, which really goes back to the original, the very first Clone Wars that Genndy Tartakovsky did.
Right, the
That
sharp,
yeah,
angular.
the very style. Yeah, exactly. Which I'm still unclear if that's canon. I don't know.
Hmm. I mean, the style was retained, but it just seemed like, and I could be totally wrong, but it just seemed like they spent more money on it. And I was just like, wow, was not
I
expecting that level.
you mean they spent more money for this one? For
Yes.
the new one?
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe. I didn't notice anything in particular. I mean, they the only thing that I really struck me with this one was how well when they were doing the Morgan stuff and they got to the planet where she became like the ruthless leader, like
Corvus,
how well it like matched
the sets. Yeah.
yeah. Because that's not always easy to do, and it's not always an inclination that people in anime, they'll take liberties with things, and they seem to really go like no, here's the map of the city, and here's how everything looks, and we're gonna make
Right.
it all look the same, and stuff.
To be fair, that set was pretty, I don't want to say simple, but it was very distinct. Like you had that outer area
Right,
where all the pores lived, and then you had
right,
where Morgan lived with the footbridge, and
right,
so it had these distinct structures. The top of the walls where they had certain fight scenes. So
right. But even the in the first episode when they were on her original planet and you see the slaughter of the Night Sisters, like all of that stuff looked straight out of the video game, which is I
yeah.
think I think that may be one of the first times we've seen some of those locations. Like I think we saw that place before, but there's a part of that place down below where it's like a lot of big trees and roots and stuff. And that's very much taken from Star Wars Jedi Outcast. I never remember the last word of these games.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's like a whole part in that where you're in that level, and they really expanded upon it in the game. And when you watch that first episode, you're like, okay, that's definitely, I remember that tree. Like there's some very distinctive looking trees, and you're like, I remember that tree.
Paul
'Cause I had
peed
to
on that
jump on it.
tree. Oh,
Yeah, because I had to like jump off that tree, like on, there's a whole thing. But anyway,
so I was happy with it visually in terms of quality and accuracy. I think you feel similarly.
yeah, and I would also say that I like the voice acting. The
Yeah,
voice acting was
voice acting was fantastic. They brought back Diana Lee
Yep.
Inosanto to play older Morgan, and they had Meredith Salinger, who reprised the role as Barriss Offee,
Yeah.
who some people might know as Mrs. Patton Oswalt. So he did quite
She
well.
does have a long career before that. Don't when you and I were younger, she was in like all these teen movies when we were kids.
Sure. I don't know.
Wait, you don't remember her?
I do not. Well, let's
Go back and look at her IMDb page. She was in a ton of movies back in like the 80s. Like, I don't remember any of them off the top of my
Oh,
head.
these
but,
are like all the like movies my white friends watched that I never cared.
yeah,
It's a Dream
It's
a
a lot-
Little Dream.
yeah,
A Night,
Dream a Little Dream. A lot of the Corey movies. Like
A Night
she
in
was
the Life of Jimmy Reardon.
Yeah, that was another one. That was another one you'd rent at Blockbuster and watch on a Saturday night,
Wow.
or watch on HBO over and over and over again.
Ah, she was Supergirl in Teen Titans Go to the Movies. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm looking through her IMDb page now. It's a lot of things I've never seen.
but you've heard of.
I've heard of, yes.
Yeah. There you go.
She was an uncredited orphan dancer in the Annie movie. That's actually her first credit. That's
Okay then.
yeah.
That's interesting to know. Good on you, Meredith.
So she's Mrs. Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
But they also brought back a lot of actors from the series.
Right.
They had whichever Madsen voices Thrawn. Is it Mads or the other one?
I think that's Mads. It was the guy who had done.
It is not. Yeah. It is Lars.
Oh, Lars. Sorry. It was. I know they got. It was the voice actor from the cartoon, not the live action actor.
Right.
That did both for Thrawn and the head Inquisitor guy.
Right. And they had Katie Sackhoff is Bo-Katan. She is there for a few seconds.
Right.
So that is pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I was actually surprised that Darth Vader didn't say anything.
No, he just
like in that one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And he could have been like, hey, didn't I kick your ass in like season 4 episode? Or
right. We also have to talk about the fact I love that they brought back General Grievous.
Yes.
Because we've never gotten enough General Grievous as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he was all over the Clone Wars cartoon and he's in Revenge of the Sith, but we've never seen anything else of him. And he was always, I think, a really interesting character.
He is, but he's also very confusing. I'm like, okay, he can do multiple lightsabers. Interesting.
Right.
He's mostly robot, but he has some human organs, and apparently they left his asthma problem with him. So.
Well, I think that's something that from the original Clone Wars cartoon that, like, I think it's Mace Windu like crushes something in him, and that's where the breathing problem started.
And they couldn't fix it. He's like 98% robot already.
I don't know, you know.
Or maybe
he has COVID. Who knows? Maybe he has long COVID.
Yeah, it's like really, really long.
Really long COVID. Yeah, well, long. We don't know how long COVID. We don't know how long COVID is going to last. So
that's true. Now let's jump into the stories. Why don't we divide this section in half and let's talk about Morgan Elsbeth's stories. So this is pretty much what I was expecting, in that it was a series of flashbacks. It started with her as a child and ended pretty much right before Ahsoka was going to show up and cause her problems in The Mandalorian. What did you think of her story or the character overall? Is this even a character you wanted to know more about?
I wouldn't say it was a character I wanted to know more about, but it wasn't a character where I was like, oh, God damn it. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, oh, they're going to tell her backstory. All right, fine. Like, it seemed, those episodes seemed like they would have worked better as an episode of Ahsoka. Like a live action episode of Ahsoka where you see that kind of, those 3 episodes combined into one and with a little more story in a long, I think that would have worked better as far as I was concerned. But it was kind of interesting. And of the 2 was the less interesting, but not by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, this was more by the books, I would say.
Yeah.
considering how the Tales of the Jedi structure worked. So we start off with her as a little kid. Her people are slaughtered. She gets pissed off. So it explains the Night Sister thing, because that was a speculation going into Ahsoka. Like, is she a Night Sister? Why doesn't she have the markings? So they explain that really quickly. Apparently, the markings on Night Sisters are related to magic, and if the magic goes away, the markings go away. But yeah, it was neat to see. I like that they gave her. Is it Frost that wrote two roads diverge in a yellow wood? So they gave her that point where, she could clearly be with the hippie mountain people and choose the path of good, but you can tell she was inclined to be angry and all dark side. And I think aren't her episodes called like the path of fear, the path of anger, and all that. So, we know she ends up bad, but I like seeing that she had a chance to not be bad and look at the different choices she made. It is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, so I was happy to see this character get more focus. Diana Lee Inosanto is part Filipino, and she kicks ass. It comes from a legendary kung fu family. Her father used to train with some guy, Bruce something, Lee. So that is actually why her middle name is Lee. So they put that in there.
I didn't know that.
Yes, but she is a kick-ass woman. She's been an actor, a stunt woman. Now she has done animated acting. So I like that her character got more of the spotlight. But yeah, as you said, I like the second half better, partially because we knew even less about this character. I think, what was she in, like 3 episodes of the Clone Wars? We meet her as a Padawan pretty early. And
she was also in Attack of the Clones, but she was in that big battle scene, so you didn't really
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So this one surprised me because I thought it would follow the structure of, a series of flashbacks that would lead up to her betraying Ahsoka and framing her for the bombing in the Jedi Temple. We did not get that. Instead, we got stories of what happened to her after that, which I was surprised by that pleasantly. How about you?
I'm with you on that. The one thing I thought was when it started, I was like, oh, okay, so we're gonna see how the whole thing with the Inquisitors got started. And then they immediately kind of went away from that. And I was like, okay. I mean, you kind of saw that, but you didn't really see like how did they come up with this idea of the sisters and this and that? And it was funny because I was sort of thinking like, is she gonna turn out to be one of the sisters that we've seen before? And then like it turned out that she wasn't, and I was like, okay. So
and why do they have numbers?
Like, why is it third sister or fourth brother? Like where I mean, what is the sort of thinking behind that? And the why do they have the very they all have the same dual blade steering wheel?
That somehow works as a helicopter. I'm not quite sure about that. Like,
I don't know. I mean, it's sort of interesting. I mean, like I get the outfits seem all very Darth Vader.
Yeah,
so that makes sense. But not everybody has a helmet, so
right.
I know we did know from other things, including there's a novel about that group as well that filled in a lot of stuff. That a lot of those characters are disillusioned Jedi,
right?
So it made sense, but I kind of wish they had gone into that even more than they did.
And what book is that, if you remember? Because I'd be interested to check that one out.
I'd have to look it up. I can picture the cover in my head. Like when you see the cover, it is one of the sisters with the red blade and everything like that. It was a good book too.
Are they only brothers and sisters? There's no like the fourth cousin twice.
No, there's no like aunties or uncles or
Just checking.
Yeah, that would be funny though. There's
Yes.
like an auntie off in the corner baking stew and stuff.
She's knitting. It's like, but yeah, again, like this is an interesting one because Barriss also has a choice. She's given a path to the dark side to become an evil inquisitor, but instead she chose a path of redemption, which surprised me. We lose a big chunk of time going from her second to the third episode. All of a sudden, she's older and has wrinkles. So,
Yeah,
but that was interesting. I really liked her story, partially because it was not at all what I was expecting. I liked the character. I still would like to know what caused her to become disillusioned with the Jedi in more detail than we learned in the Clone Wars. But I was very satisfied with this story. How did you feel about it overall?
I thought it was good. I just wish there was a little more to it about the Inquisitors. Like maybe like another episode or have the episodes be a little bit longer. I did really like how there was that time jump and then you see her and you find out like, oh, okay, so she's been around for a while and nobody knows where she's been and Yoda doesn't know where I mean, we don't even know when that was. Like we obviously like it's sometime before A New Hope, but I assume it was probably
No.
right before.
Yeah,
because there were Inquisitors after
that.
Empire.
You're
So
right.
they're after
No, you're
Jedi.
right.
So it had to happen before Jedi, but we don't know when.
Right. But when she sends that Jedi, the family with the Force sensitive baby, she says she's sending it off to a woman. So I assume that was Ahsoka she was sending her off to. Where do you have any ideas or theories about that?
I assumed it was Ahsoka as well. But I also assumed that Ahsoka was not necessarily the one training them. Oh,
Right.
it may not have been Ahsoka. It could have. No, that doesn't. I was going to say it could have been that woman that you meet in the Obi-Wan show who runs the Underground Railroad for Jedi.
Oh yeah.
But that wasn't far. I don't think that was far enough in. Well, I was going to say I don't think that was far enough in the future for her to get that old and wrinkly. But then again, we don't know anything about her species.
Right.
They could have a shelf life of 30 years. So, well, you don't know. I mean, that's the thing. Like you can't assume that everybody lives the same as everybody else.
Right.
Wookiees live 200, 300 years.
Whatever the hell Yoda is
right.
like
They live like,
years.
800 to 1,000 years. Like, Maz Kanata is like 1,500 years when we meet her and may still be out there. We don't know.
Do you remember offhand who was Barriss's master? Oh, it was Luminara Unduli. Aha.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it might have been Shakti.
No. I think she's the same species as Luminara. Or maybe I'm just being racist because they're both green.
I don't know.
She is a Mirialon. Well, that's interesting. But yeah, overall, as a whole, I mean, these are like quick bit things, as Matthew said. This is Star Wars tapas we're dealing with, and as really easy to watch, quick digestible things that you could either binge one at a time or binge the whole thing in less than 90 minutes. I was very happy with Tales of the Jedi. But let's talk about more tales. What do you want to see in this format, in this series? And let's assume they're sticking with, one character gets 3 episodes kind of thing.
Right.
What characters would you like to see more of to get more or backstories?
Tales of the Sith with more about the Emperor and God, what's his name? Darth Maul, I think would be interesting. Maybe the Emperor and his relationships to Darth Maul, Darth Vader, and Darth City and Darth Plagueis, maybe. That could be interesting. I could see them doing one about the Inquisitors, where they do actually go into more about how they all got recruited and stuff like that. I mean, there's a whole bunch you could do. You could do, you could do one about Poe, about his backstory.
Right, but let's keep it at let's say it's Tales of the Inquisitors.
Right.
Sticking with the theme. I would like to see, because wasn't the Grand Inquisitor, wasn't he a Jedi Temple guard that fell? So that I'd like to see that. How did that happen?
Right. I'd like to see him, and there's other, you could do it with him. You could, and have that be them sort of showing you how he came to be the Grand Inquisitor and how he helped Darth Vader set the parameters of what the Inquisitors would be. There's a lot of different people you could do. There's a lot of interesting kind of characters you can do these little things.
Yeah. I would like to see Tales of the Scoundrels and have 3 episodes on Hondo. I think he's a fun character. And not difficult to do live action. The other one I was thinking of was, if you stick with Tales of the Scoundrels, who's that guy? As Morgan, voiced by James Hong, but he would be, I don't know, would he be too weird?
A little bit, but James Hong, anytime you get James Hong to be in anything, like I'm down with that. I love that.
Yes, legend, absolute legend.
God, who else? I feel like there's like other people you could do.
We could do Tales of the Wookiees and see what those guys are up to.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just on a flight and they happened to have the documentary that somebody made about the Christmas special. And they talked about how weird it is that the first 10 minutes of that holiday special, there's not one word of English language dialogue.
Yeah.
It is all just the Wookiees, and none of it is translated.
Well, I mean, the whole show seems like a highly drug influenced project, so that might have seemed like a good idea at the time.
Surprisingly, I don't think it was as influenced by drugs as you think. I think it was more influenced by what people did in the 70s,
drugs,
in terms of like variety shows.
That's true, but
you know what I mean? Like, it is very much made by variety show people, not Star Wars people.
But in my head, the 70s was all about reckless drug use and unprotected sex. So,
well, yes,
and disco.
Yeah. Good times.
Hey, Studio 54 seemed awesome. So.
Yeah, I feel like there's I wonder if they would do any of these set in between the end of Jedi and the beginning of Force Awakens.
Sure.
That's why I brought up Poe, because I thought he would be good for one of those.
Well, he was a smuggler back in the day. We could learn what that was like.
Yeah. We don't really, they did go into Captain Phasma's backstory in the book they did about her, but I would love to see more with that character. I think that's a woefully underused character.
Yeah, and get Gwendolyn Christie's lovely voice back in the Star Wars universe. That would be cool.
I would love to see Maz Kanata. Maz Kanata is another
Tales of the Cantina. You can
there you go. Tales of the Bartender or something. I don't know. She's an interesting character. And I'd like to see more with her. Yeah, I think there's like a ton of different people you could do. You could do Tales of the General and have it be, what was Leia doing, in the run up to The Force Awakens? I mean, we know she was we know from the books that she was a politician, and then that kind of came to an end when it came out that her dad was Darth Vader.
Right.
But what else happened during that time?
Lots of possibilities depending on your tastes.
Yeah.
For you ladies.
Dr. Aphra. That's another one from the comics that would be a great character to do.
That's a wonderful character.
Yeah.
But I don't know if these bite-sized episodes work for her, because in my head, her dialogue is it's almost like Kevin Smith, where it's very dense and wise-assy.
Now you got me thinking of like a live-action Dr. Aphra show done by Kevin Smith.
I'd watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, he would be respectful to the source material, of course.
I think he'd have to co-direct. He'd have to get somebody who was a hard, serious producer to work with him on that, though.
Well, I mean, I think Filoni would keep him in line. Yeah,
I think he'd have to work with. I think like him and Filoni would have to do it together in a weird way. Like Kevin could direct it and co-author it and all that stuff, but Filoni would have to be like, okay, look, this is, because Kevin's never worked with that level of special effects and never that kind of budget, and it can't be all like fart jokes. And
you mean the wings in Dogma weren't the height of special effects at the time?
No.
Tales of the Gungans. Jason Mewes would make a fantastic Gungan. He'd be the vile, profanity.
You joke, but the Phantom Menace was just back in theaters for its 25th anniversary or something, and it made like a lot of money, a lot more money than they expected it to make.
Yeah.
There's been sort of a reckoning on that movie and on the prequels as well. So
yeah, I think it's everyone around Gen X and older that kind of looked down on that movie, and I don't know. There's a lot to like about it. The Gungan stuff, Jar Jar, I understand why he's hated. He probably got hated more than he ought to have been.
Absolutely.
And I feel so bad. Although that actor has gotten redemption as a Jedi, so that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But guys, I want to hear your ideas for the Tales series. We've had Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire. If you have any ideas for tales of whatever in the Star Wars universe, leave them in the comment section. If they get made, I get 10%. Or I'm just going to pitch it as my own original idea and delete your comment. Just kidding. But yeah, this is, I like this series. I don't know how cost effective these are, but they are short, bite-sized little chunks of Star Wars that you can enjoy quickly. And I hope we get more of them in the future. Agree, disagree?
Yeah, I don't think we need a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like I think
once a year or twice a year is good.
Yeah, I think what they did this time, and I think they may have done this last year as well, like put out like a couple on May 4th. Like they have to have something for May 4th. And this seems like it would be a good, because it's like it's very self-contained and it's very like quick and easy. So it's like they need to do something for May the 4th, and this seems like a good thing to, something kind of fun like this to do.
And now, inspired by Matthew, I'm going to start inventing dishes for my Star Wars tapas restaurant. Well, got some ideas there. Mm-hmm.
Somebody gave me a Star Wars cookbook once, and the only thing I remember was there were Wookiee cookies, which just to me sounded like what you call it when a Wookiee takes a shit in the woods. Like gorilla biscuits or cow patties.
Did you see the Star Wars donuts that I got on May 4th?
Yes, I did see those. Those are. I love that everybody gets so into like Star Wars.
Yeah,
it's just kind of just hilarious.
Well, there was one where I thought it was a step too far, where I got an email from Mark Hamill on behalf of Joe Biden's campaign. I'm like, no, don't like this is sacred territory you're going into, Biden. Don't fuck with that. Like,
Yeah.
you leave Mark Hamill out of
he did. Mark Hamill turned up at like the press briefing that morning.
Yeah, I feel dirty about it.
Yeah,
Like,
and apparently he went and talked to Joe Biden. But apparently Mark Hamill's met like a bunch of the presidents. Like he met Obama, he met Jimmy Carter.
I feel that Star Wars is this beautiful, pure thing that should not be sullied by politics. So you leave Luke Skywalker out of politics. Nah, Mark Hamill can do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
Absolute legend. Absolute legend. So
yep.
That is going to be a wrap for this episode. If you want to see the Star Wars donuts that we were just talking about, my Instagram is right up there, and there are pictures of them. If you want to check out Paul's website, oh wait, we got to play around with, I'm going to make it rain. Come on, effects. Look at that. I'm like Storm. I have control of it. And apparently you're Jubilee, or actually that's more like Dazzler. Which is a good segue, because I hope you join us next week, where Paul and a few other friends are going to be talking about X-Men 97, which wraps up next week. A lot of our friends are really enjoying it. I am not enjoying it nearly as much as a lot of our friends, but I am open to other opinions. So I think this should be a fun one with some disagreements. Mm. But do you want to give me a hint of what you're leaning towards as far as X-Men 97 goes?
Do you really want me to?
Do you really want to hurt me, Boy George? Yes.
I mean, do you want me to spoil that? Because
not in detail, but yeah.
Let's put it to you this way. You said to me, do you want to come do the show about X-Men 97? And I said to you, I haven't watched it because I didn't watch the original show. And then I started watching this and I realized it was kind of the same. And you were like, yeah, sure. So
it's a different
perspective. That's my entire bit.
I'm excited. So you have to finish all of them by next week.
Yeah, that's not good.
We should at least watch the last three, because the first two were not so great, but it did get better after that.
I heard that. We'll see what happens.
Yes. So please join us next week for X-Men 97. Have lots of thoughts and things to say about that. And thanks for watching RPadTV. Please leave a limerick in the comments section and hit that like button if you're so inclined. And see you next time. Be good. Activate sign. Balloons.